All right, well, thank you very much again to Mr. Anderson and to all of you for having us out. My name is Keith Hilson.
I'm Rachel Halbroot.
And as Mr. Anderson said, we're both with Schmidt Music. How many of you know Schmidt Music, have been in one of our stores, have seen us around? Which is cool. That's one of the great things of us as a company. We have been here in the Twin Cities for literally over 120 years now. And so it's kind of nice, everybody knows who we are, and we work hard at letting everybody know how we can help them. So first off, congratulations on what sounds like an awesome performance last night. Rachel and I, of course, are both musicians, and that's a fantastic feeling. You get done with the end of our performance, and you feel good about what you did, and you can take that moment to just sit back and reflect, like, yes, this was awesome. I really enjoyed what I did. I feel like I connected with the music. And then it looks like you've already got some great projects coming up for you, which is really, really exciting. So, one of the things that we have at Schmidt Music, of course, is we have a whole wide variety of instruments. You can go into any one of our stores, and we're going to have a little bit of everything. You know, we're going to have band instruments, orchestra instruments, guitars, basses, you know, drumsticks, some drums, accessories, everything that you need to have. But in a few of our stores, we have a little bit more of a specialization. So Rachel and I both work in our store in Brooklyn Center, which is about half an hour north of here. And in our store there, we have a little bit more of a specialization on the band side. We have a number of these little kind of stores within the store. So for example, Dr. Rachel is the manager of our flute gallery. So at any one time, they're going to have 20 or 30 or 40 or more flutes and piccolos and everything flute related you need. I run our trombone and low brass shop, so at any time I'm going to have 30 or 40 trombones in the shop, as well as euphoniums and tubas and French horns and cases and mouthpieces and everything else you might need to look for. And we have the same thing with Dr. Ben Alley in our trumpet shop and Adam Duvall in our saxophone shop. And so one of the things we do in our jobs on a day-to-day basis is we talk with folks about instruments. We talk with them about student instruments, beginning instruments, and what other options there might be after that, what we might consider intermediate or professional level, what those differences are, and why we might want to look at different instruments, what they can do for us. So, first question first, how many of you have had an opportunity in the past in your instrument category, and I'm not talking about I'm a trumpet player and I tried my friend's saxophone once or something like that, but I'm a trumpet player and I've tried different trumpets. I'm a saxophone player, I've tried different saxophones. How many of us have had that experience before? Anybody? Okay, we've got a few hands. If you think back to what you experienced at that time, what did you notice compared to your instrument, what you're used to? Were there any differences that you found between them? Yes, sir?
Like the tone was a lot like different, I guess?
Okay, different sound, right? Okay, totally. Anything else that anybody? Yes, sir?
Just better sounding and more professional.
A better sound, more professional sound. Yes, yes, ma'am. Okay, good. What did that do for? How did that make it different for you?
It just kind of sounded odd.
It sounded odd. Okay. So very. Oh, yes, ma'am.
You can play higher notes.
Okay, you can play higher with it. Yes. So most of us, as we start our band careers, start off on what we consider a beginning band instrument, right? I did so with trombone, Rachel did so with flute, and these are designed specifically with a younger player in mind, a beginner, right? They're a lot of times designed a little bit smaller. They're designed for a younger player to be easier to play, and they're designed to be a little bit more durable. So a lot of times they're built a little bit more, you know, substantially, they have a little bit more protection to them, so when they're getting banged and bumped around, as will happen, they're not going to get damaged nearly as easily. But, again, these are designed for younger students, and so at this point, where, you know, you're in 7th grade, you've been likely playing 1 or 2 or 3 or more years at this point. You're coming to a point at some time here, if you keep playing, where you're advancing in your abilities. You have larger lung capacity, your embouchure is strengthened, your technique has improved. All of this, as you are growing as a musician, at some point, your student instrument may just not be designed to follow along with you. It's not built for you anymore. And so very often what we end up finding is that when somebody tries different instruments, they move into that next level of instrument, something that's designed more for where they're at. It helps to support their growth. It helps them to keep moving along their musical journey. So we're going to spend some time talking about that, and by the way, you're going to have a chance to try those out in rehearsal here too. Okay, you're going to go through play some of the songs that you just played at the concert with these instruments so that you can kind of experience for yourself what are the differences? How does this work for me? What do you notice? But we thought we'd start off for just a minute, kind of get our ears opened up here a little bit and have Rachel and I play for you so you can hear a little bit what the instruments might be able to help support us in what we're trying to do. So, would you like me to play first, Rachel?
Yeah, go ahead, Keith.
All right, perfect. So, as I run the trombone shop, I'm of course a trombone player here. So, I'm going to play just a little excerpt from a piece by a Baroque composer by the name of Telemann. And I picked this one because it has a little bit of flair, a little bit more technique involved. Some things that an instrument like this are going to allow me to kind of express a little bit easier. Versus my beginning student trombone I started on, that again allows me to play more technically, gives me more access to an easier sound, just again helps to support what I'm trying to say musically.
Yeah, so there are similar things that happen with all of our woodwind instruments as well, right? Just some design aesthetics that make it a little bit easier to play quickly because we're going to have a lot more fast notes coming up pretty soon here. And just some different hand working and construction that goes into the instrument. So the biggest thing here that I want to just demonstrate quickly is going to be that mechanism, right? It's designed with a little bit more care in mind so that everything seals more efficiently, the springs are springier, so it all works together. So I'll give you just a quick little excerpt here. Today. But these instruments can make your life a lot easier, right? So having more hand work in that mechanism there, also having more hand work in the whole thing in general, right? So I'm not talking about like a machine cuts something and then someone just like finishes it. I'm talking about some of these from start to finish, spend time in the hands of maybe 3 or 4 craftspeople total. And that kind of attention will really get us that different quality level. So with flute in particular, we're talking about someone making the head joint, right? So what are your student flutes made out of? Do you know? Yes, absolutely. So that would be across the board. Your very first flute is going to be nickel mixed with zinc. It's a really durable material, so if you happen to drop your flute, it's not going to affect it quite as badly as like a softer material. Because now we move actually into solid silver. So the head joint, someone actually makes that out of a piece of metal. Someone else makes the body, so they take a piece of silver about this big, heat it up, dry it out, and you make a flute out of that. So that solid silver is going to give us a richer, more resonant tone overall throughout the instrument, first in the head and then in the body. And then you mentioned someone up here, I think it might have been you, open holes before? Yeah, so those open holes are actually going to help us create a bigger sound, right? So for us as flute players, our sound doesn't come out the end. Has anyone ever had a friend like plug the end of your flute to try to like prevent the sound from coming out? It doesn't work, right? You can still play. That's because most of our sound comes out the keys, out of the body, okay? So by having more of those holes, we're actually going to have a bigger sound because the air can escape the instrument more freely. So especially for our low notes, it's going to be way easier to project. Really nice, right? For higher notes, it's going to be much more rich and lush instead of that sometimes like piercing quality that it can be up there, right? So, and that's just by changing the metal, by adding those open holes, and then adding an extra key, right? We have about an extra inch of tubing. So when you make an instrument longer in general, and this goes for everything, it's going to lower it, right? So it actually gives us that rich kind of tone quality by adding that extra inch of tubing. So biggest thing to take away from that is that the material that we're using will have the most direct impact overall on what happens to the instrument. And then with a few minor upgrades, we can make some bigger changes still. So with material, let's go to clarinet really quickly. So where are my clarinetists? Right up here. And oboe, I'm going to include you in this as well. What are your first instruments made out of? Have a guess? Anyone have a guess? What does it look like if you look at it? It starts with a P. Plastic. Someone said it back there. Good. Yeah, they're made out of plastic. Again, really durable because things happen, right? We might occasionally like hit the stand or something like that. But that's not going to make a huge impact on the sound that you can get from the instrument. Now, plastic is great. You can make a sound to start out, but it doesn't have that like resonance that we're looking for, right? So then we actually switch to wood. And this is grenadillo wood, so it's a hardwood that actually is really rich and robust. It helps create a warmer sound overall in the instrument. And then we have more hand working here as well. So this is going to be a theme, pay attention, hand working, hand crafting. So the barrel here actually has more hand crafting that goes into it. Why is that important? Does anyone have a guess? Yeah?
That's where like most of the sound is.
Yeah, absolutely. So once you blow through the mouthpiece, the next place that the air touches is going to be that barrel, right? So by having more handwork in there, we can control the kind of sound that's going through the instrument. And then a little bit more with the bell as well. So having that kind of flare out at the end just so to get the acoustics to be where you want them to be. And then changing up some of the metal that makes up the keys. So that faster mechanism again, different kinds of pinless action sometimes we call it, but changing up from maybe like nickel into silver plated keys, solid silver keys. Some people have started doing stainless steel because it doesn't tarnish, but all sorts of different combinations that are just changing the weight and feel of the instrument. That'll make it a little bit easier to play, more free blowing in the top register and bigger and richer, more velvety in the low register. So then, we've been talking about materials a little bit. So saxophone is a little bit different. Saxophonists, what are your instruments made out of?
My bass sax is made out of silver.
It's a good guess. What does yours look like?
Brass.
Yes, it's brass, absolutely. Good. So brass is going to be, again, that kind of more durable material, right? But we're actually not going to change it. They found brass actually works really well for saxophone. Go figure. So this one looks a little different than some of yours, right? They can come in all sorts of different colors. But the most important thing is that you've got a coat of lacquer on there. So that's a clear coating over that polished brass that's going to protect it. Now, at this level, you can start to kind of customize what you're looking for in terms of the color of the finish, that color of the lacquer. So this is actually just a different colored lacquer over brass. Okay, so it's not going to really change the sound all that much. Now there are other instruments, other varieties that might. We have sometimes what's called raw brass in the instrument, so that doesn't have any of that shine to it. Has anyone seen anything that looks like that? Yeah, so that's often a common thing. The objective there is that maybe that lacquer prevents some of the vibration from happening, or it might vibrate totally differently. So we have a lot of options there, and it's always best to try if you can. The most important thing here, though, is actually hand construction. I told you, it's going to keep coming up. So in the neck. So the same reason it was important for the barrel on the clarinet, it's going to be important here, because once you come through that mouthpiece, this really determines how the air flows through the instrument. So the more time and attention there is to that detail, the better it's going to be. We do add an extra key. We've got a high F sharp key on this one, which is going to help facilitate that note a little bit easier. And then just that mechanism again, just really smooth, really nice and easy. So I encourage everyone in my woodwind friend family here to try a few fast notes when you get these instruments and just see how that feels under your fingers. But the biggest takeaway from all of this is that there are lots of options, and really the best thing to do is to just play them, try them, and we'll make sure you get a chance to do that at the end here.
Absolutely. So a lot of the ideas that Rachel's talking about with woodwinds do follow through in brass to an extent. Now, we don't see the same type of difference in the material. We're not completely changing the brass and brass, but there are other certain things we can do with it that allow us to provide some differences in how the instruments sound, how they play. So we're talking a little bit about lacquer, that clear protective coat. And obviously that's very common in a lot of our brass instruments, but we do have other options. The other most recognized option, or popular option, is this. So what's the finish? If it's not lacquer, what's going on with this trumpet? Any idea what we have over the top of the brass?
People are saying it, just speak up, it's good.
Silver, right? It's silver plated. And so with this, it's still brass underneath, right? We can just take a look at the tuning slide. It's still that yellow brass underneath, but the difference is we have a silver plating over the top of that. Now, why would we put the extra time in to silver plate this versus just putting that lacquer on? Any ideas? Yes?
To make it louder?
To make it louder, yes, it changes the sound, absolutely. Typically, when we silver plate a brass instrument, it makes the sound a little bit brighter. That means it has more upper overtones, upper frequencies, and sometimes people refer to it as having a higher sound or a sharper sound, right? And it also gives it more projection. It takes the sound and it focuses it outwards a little bit more. Now, for a lot of trumpet players, they like that sound, they like what it does. Now, if you see a silver-plated instrument versus a lacquered instrument, does that automatically mean that it's better? No. There are so many other things that go into how the instruments are designed that are going to affect it. You could have a lacquered instrument that maybe plays very bright, or you could have a silver-plated instrument that plays really low and dark. So there are a lot of differences within that. But silver plating is a really popular option, not only for trumpet, but also for euphonium and tuba very often, because euphonium and tuba have such dark, warm, broad sounds naturally. If you silver plate them, sometimes it just gives them a little bit of focus, helps them to project a little bit more without losing that beautiful, warm euphonium tuba sound. So besides plating, we do have a couple other ways we can change the brass options here. Now, with our horn, is this silver plated or are we looking at something else? It's something else, right? You can kind of tell right off the bat, it doesn't have that same shine, right? This is a material known as nickel silver. Now we heard the term nickel before when we were talking about flutes. This is in a kind of a similar range. In this case it's brass, but it has nickel added to it, which gives it this color. Nickel, adding it to this, makes it a much harder material. We'll see nickel silver very often. Anytime we see like all of the braces, everything on brass instruments that are that silver color, that's nickel silver. It's much harder, it's lighter as well, and so you can use it to bind things together. But in certain instruments, especially horn, it works really well. Now, the problem with horn versus all of our other band instruments is that all of our other instruments, the sound is going outward, right? It's going out towards the audience. For the poor horn player, their bell's going the wrong way. The sound's going opposite the direction we want. And so, very often we want to try to find ways to help them to try to get as much sound as they can, help them to project. Nickel silver is one popular option for that. The other thing we can do is we can change the brass itself to give it a different color, make it respond differently. So, two different trombones, if we take a look, two different colors on the bells, right? Okay, this is where you're a little bit more accustomed to seeing this color. This is what we call yellow brass. And this is a little less common at kind of our beginning student level. This is called gold brass. Between the two, which one do you think has more copper in it? This or this? Yellow or gold? Gold. The gold, right? Whenever we add copper to the mixture, the more copper we add, the darker, the warmer, the broader the sound gets. It changes the sound, how it plays for us. Now, is there a right or wrong answer? Just because a trombone has a gold brass bell, does it automatically make it better? No, it makes it different. And just like Rachel said a little bit, it's all about what's the right. Every player is different. Every, how they play, how they sound, how they work with the instrument, everything is different there. And so we always encourage people to try out different options. Just because your friend has one instrument or you saw a review online and they said, oh, this is the best trumpet or the best clarinet out there, it doesn't mean it's going to work for you. Everybody is different. Final thing that we see, well, two more things actually, with flow brass in particular, is we have some different tubing sizes first off. So, a lot of times we'll see the terminology bore size. And all bore size means is just the tubing size, how big or small it is. Very often on our smaller instruments, or our beginning student instruments, the tubing size is a little bit smaller, right? It's a little bit easier for a younger player to play. They don't take as much air. But, especially on the low brass end, very often, as we're moving into more advanced instruments, we're moving into larger tubing sizes. When we're ready, when we have the larger lung capacity, when we have the armature strength, everything to fill up the instrument, then that larger tubing size can give us this bigger, broader sound. It can give us more control. It can give us a wider dynamic range. It can give us a wider range in the low end and in the high end as well. The other thing we see is the addition of extra valves or extra triggers, like on the trombone here. So with these, like I said, euphonium tuba often have the fourth valve. On trombone, we have this trigger. Any idea from my low brass folks, what is that fourth valve? What does that trigger do? Yes?
It makes it so you can play deep, like lower notes that have to go all the way out.
Yeah, so it gives us, so actually you kind of combine two in one there. So it gives us some alternate positions. So for trombone, the position's way far out, right? 6th and 7th position. Or on euphonium tuba, like 1 and 3 and 1, 2, 3 combinations, right? If we use the fourth valve, or if we use the trigger, we can take the place of those positions. So 6th position, 1st position, right? And so when we start moving into technical passages, all of a sudden, we're giving us some technical opportunities. The other thing it does is it allows us to play lower, like you said. We're adding more tubing, we're making the instrument longer, it lets us play lower. That's about as low as we can play on a 3-valve euphonium or tuba, or on a straight trombone without the epitaph, right? We activate the valve, and we can play lower as well. And why is that important? Because the further we go along, the more we're going to be expected to play these fast technical passages or these soft, smooth, connected passages where having those different fingering or slide options can be advantageous. The more we're going to be expected to spend time in the lower register where having that valve is going to be very, very important. So, as you can tell, we're really just scratching the surface here. We could talk in every single one of these instrument categories. We could go for hours and hours about all of the differences with that. But the important thing is that, first off, again, every instrument is different. We really encourage people to take the opportunity. If you're thinking that maybe it's time for me to take that next step, as you get the chance to try them today and say, boy, I can notice a difference. This feels different. This is easier for me. And you're thinking, well, maybe it's time for me to try something else, to go out there and find some options. Obviously, we'd love to have you visit us up at our store at the Brooklyn Center, but wherever you can, visit the music store, try out some options. See if you can start to get an idea what a good fit is for you. Talk to somebody you trust to give you some advice. Talk to Mr. Anderson, talk to Ms. Sommerfeld. Say, I'm looking for a new trumpet. What would you recommend? I can guarantee they're going to have some ideas to help give you some direction with this. The final thing we always like to say is these are not a cure-all. There's no magic flute that's automatically going to make you a world-class player. For me, I always say, ultimately, what we accomplish as musicians is all about head, chops, and heart. What we want, our drive, what we want to accomplish with our music. How hard are we willing to work? Are we willing to put in the time? And what is our passion? What do we want to say with our music? That's going to be the defining ideas with it. These instruments are not going to solve any problem for you, but what they can do is they can help to support you more. Instead of you fighting against the instrument, it can sit up underneath you and it can lift you and just make that path, all that hard work you're doing, just make it a little bit easier. So, a lot of different ideas here, but most importantly, we want to give you a chance to try these out. So what we're going to do is we're going to pass out these instruments here in those sections where there are more players than instruments, of course. We're going to ask everybody to pass them around, make sure that everybody has an opportunity here.
Quick little disclaimer too, these guys have been very nice and very trusting to give you these multiple $1,000 instruments. And so I want to go the extra level. They're willing to just hand them to you, but I want to make sure that your hands aren't sticky and that you didn't just eat something. If you're chewing gum, this is a no-go for you, unless you go to the drinking fountain and rinse out all those sugars. We don't want them to have to do extra cleaning just because you weren't thinking. Does that make sense? If you've got greasy hands from lunch, I mean even a little bit, if you put lotion on today at all, it's time to head to the sink, wash your hands off with soap. That'll break down into that stuff. That just damages the instruments and makes them have to clean them a little bit more. Sound fair? Also, when you're handing them or moving, see how slow she's moving? That's not because she's waiting for me to talk. It's because she's being diligent and careful about how she hands things and how she moves around the room. So the rest of today is going to be slow motion, okay? Nobody's going to get all excited and start moving quickly. Sound good? I'm also passing around some thank you cards. Sign your name anywhere on there on the inside. Just put your name and on each one, okay? Now, the first thing we're going to do is maybe we should just go around and well, let you guys kind of play those instruments on your own a little bit. And then we'll play a song. What song would you guys like to play? Okay, we'll play Crazy in Love. I think the first thing you're going to notice, is that the band sounds louder and softer. That's called dynamics. You're going to have a bigger dynamic range. And what we've been talking about is this. This band is, even with only a third of the band playing new instruments, it's going to sound more in tune. It's going to sound more in tune, and it's going to have a better tone quality, right? Like they said, yes, your instruments are good. They're good for beginning ranges, which means the middle notes. They're easier to get out, and they're designed to help you develop your embouchure, okay? But these instruments are for a wider range, higher notes and lower notes, and playing more in tune, okay? Now, percussion, they also have an instrument back here for you. You'll notice we have different needs. We don't necessarily need better materials and more expensive because we have expensive. Guys? Thank you. We already have expensive. These are $5,000 or $6,000 a piece. We play them every day. What we need is something that's more affordable. So there's a bunch of versions of this. You guys can grab a set of yarn mallets, all the different harnesses. This is actually something where you can buy in 3 pieces. Percussionists, would you look at me? You can buy just the top part and set it on the table. That saves you hundreds of dollars. Or you can add that the mounting system at the bottom, the frame, and add that, and that's a few more $100. And then you can get the resonators, the tubes underneath, and that would make it a little louder. So you're going to notice it's a little bit softer, but it is a natural wood sound. You guys are used to this very ringy sound, and so you're going to hear that and go, oh, that doesn't sound as rich. But that's actually more authentic, that shorter wood sound, okay? So go ahead and play a few notes on your own. We will pass them around. Everybody needs to get a chance. Take a look at the clock. You're only going to get a minute or two on each one. Go initially you're going to notice the volume. So it's a better volume, it's more in tune. We're not here to give you instruments that are louder. They just sound better. Okay? Now this, you're planting the seed for later. No one is asking you to go buy an instrument right now. This is all about how do you think you would be interested in getting an upgrade instrument in the next 5 years? Right, and it's not all of you, and it's not right now. This is about starting that conversation, starting a savings account, and starting working towards it, okay? Here we go. 1, 2, ready, and go. that trumpet passage, and they have what, 3 trumpets out there? How many do you guys have?
2.
2? With just 2 trumpets, did you notice how much louder it was? Who's playing it? Hold them up, yeah? Can we just hear it? Play the beginning. 1, 2, just the 2 of you. Go. What do you guys notice? It's just easier to get sounds out. Yeah. How about this horn? Can you hear this horn play? Just play some notes. I don't care what you play. Do you hear like how much fuller that is? Okay. How about a clarinet? Can you get a demo? Play something. Like his volume just comes out naturally. Okay. Some of these, like we said before, these beginner instruments are good for beginning sounds. Now we need more. Okay. Let's play from the beginning again. Or what number did we stop at? 17? We'll start at 17.
Good. Why don't you go ahead and pass it on down here?
Yes, switch. Trumpets should switch. Flutes can switch. They've got some disinfectant that's a little cleaner than our green spray and all that. So, okay, go ahead and keep switching. The rest of us will just play. 1, 2, and make sure you disinfect it. Don't just pass it down the line. We're not doing that, right? Disinfect it.
Same mouthpiece.
Sorry,
Your mouthpiece, yeah.
1, 2, 17, go. Measure 17, measure 17. 1, 2, 17. Keep moving the instruments around. What do you think?
It's a lot fuller.
Yeah, and you're not even playing it. You're just listening to Quincy. Can you hear Quincy better?
No.
Chloe, I can hear him. You can tell looking at, listening to 5 of you, which of you have the large bore instruments. You really can. From here. Okay? It's amazing. The other classes that were before lunch had the opportunity to come in during their lunch if they wanted to check it out even more. We're not going to really have that opportunity. These guys will probably be after school for a few minutes. So if you came by for 5 minutes and tried out in a practice room by yourself, you could. But better yet, go to their shop where they have even more and you have more time. You should spend hours listening to these instruments as you play them, for sure. Okay? So sometime over winter break, maybe plan a trip with your family to get out to their stores. Any last comments you guys have? Okay, so if you have questions, you can always ask me, but they're really good resources. If you want to stay after a little bit, I'll write you a pass. If you want to chat with them a little bit, I can write a couple passes. But really, we need to say thank you to them, so everyone say thank you. Thank you. Nice job, yep. Now, if you have one of those instruments, you still need to be slow and careful, and the rest of you, have a nice weekend. Congratulations on a great concert.